Welcome to episode 102 of the Sports Marketing Machine podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Neisser. Today I sit down with Ben and Bryant from the Minnesota Wild marketing team, along with Amanda from TrueDialog, to talk about the impact of text message marketing. We talk about fan engagement, ticket sales, and how the Wild started with a service-first approach in communication and how it's evolved. So many great strategies, tips, tactics for you if you are using text messaging, or if you're not, some great ideas. Let's get to it. Welcome to the podcast. Excited to welcome Ben and Bryant from the Wild and Amanda from TrueDialog. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Well, we're talking all about texting. There's some tremendous numbers we'll go through today and how to improve the fan experience, how to sell more tickets. But before we dig into it, there's a lot of different texting companies out there. Ben, Bryant, why did you choose TrueDialog? What was it about TrueDialog that stood out to you that said, hey, this is the right fit for us?
Yeah, I think I'll jump in there. We've been with TrueDialog, 3-4 years now. And, I think we were with a different provider prior to that. And what that provider really was they were providing the middleware, essentially, right? So they weren't directly integrated with carriers. They had to make money. So they made money through their software, right? And ultimately, what we were looking for was also a better integration with Oracle Eloqua. So Eloqua is our Marcom platform that we use primarily for email, but we wanted to be able to really utilize that with SMS and have some flexibility within that. And as we are evaluating the marketplace, we met with TrueDialog, and ultimately they kind of filled all of our needs. So what I would say really sold us initially was the fact that they were very interested in understanding our needs, how we plan to utilize it within Eloqua, so that way if they needed to tweak their Eloqua integration, they were able to do that. And so ultimately they're just a great partner, and from an actual tangible aspect, they are directly integrated with carriers. So they're not packaging our messages and then delivering them, to another service provider who then delivers them to. They're directly integrated. So you're removing one potential layer of communication failure. That also helps with the turnaround time when you're going through the carrier approval process with short codes, long codes, anything like that. Again, because they're able to have those direct communications with the carriers to help you through that approval process. So that's just kind of a quick, short explanation of why. There's certainly many more reasons that I'm sure we'll touch on as we go through this, but that's a summary.
Yeah. Ben, anything you want to add?
Yeah, when I joined the Wild, we had TrueDialog, and I haven't known anything different. So I think Bryant hit the nail on the head. I think the only thing I would add was just the ease of utilizing it. Like Bryant mentioned, it is in our marketing technology in Eloqua. And so it really does help supplement our email communication, that customer journey, and being able to just implement text right after the email step.
Love it. So when you signed up, got started with TrueDialog, oftentimes when I talk to teams who are just getting started with texting, it's like, all right, I want to sell tickets, or I want to communicate to my season ticket holders, mini plan holders. It's more of a fan communication or a ticket selling. What was the approach? Because you can't eat the whole apple with one bite right out of the gate. So what was the approach for y'all?
For us, it actually was service first. So the impetus was, when we started this, we were changing our security policies at our arena, right? So we wanted to make sure, the big one was our no bag policy. There were some other smaller policy changes, but the big one was no bag policy. So obviously we have fans traveling from all over the place, and we don't want somebody showing up to the actual gates trying to get in with a bag that they can't bring with them, and then either having to turn them away, go back to their car, or, certainly we have a lot of fans that aren't driving down, right? So then what do they do, right? They're taking ride share, Uber, something like that. So biggest thing was, how do we get in front of these people and make sure they are aware of our new policies? And, you certainly can only do so much, but we wanted to give every opportunity to get that information in front of our fans. So we had, multiple methods of communication from a marketing perspective to try and make people aware. But then, certainly on email, we have a Know Before You Go campaign that, we reach out to fans who are ticketed multiple days in advance of their event, and then on the day of their event, they get an email as well. But we also wanted to hit them with a text message, and the text message, we timed it so that it's about 2 hours prior to game time. So, our gates open about 90 minutes prior to a game. So we figured, hey, let's hit these people 2 hours ahead of time, and that should catch people as they're leaving their house or whatnot, well in advance of them, hopefully getting to the gates. And text messaging, right, it's the most at your fingertips type of communication for most people, right? It's on their home screen. They're going to see those notifications more likely than they will see an email, especially when we're talking about a very specific window of time, right? People are less likely to be checking their emails regularly than they are with their text. So, that was the impetus for us, was that kind of service first mentality. The nice thing when you start from a service standpoint is you may not have the breadth of a marketing subscription list that you would desire, right? So starting with service gives you a little bit of runway to build up that your marketing subscription list as well.
Yeah. So Ben, let's dig into kind of the communication of this. So we've got the list. I'm not sure if is there an integration, before I dig into this question, is there an integration between your ticketing software and TrueDialog, or did you have to export and import? What did that look like?
I think Brian can speak better to that. As I mentioned in my previous answer, I was lucky enough to come to Minnesota Wild 3 years ago, and everything was set up for me. So it was basically like I got to go in Eloqua, and that was my playground. But
That was it. Okay.
Bryant has definitely, seen this from start to finish. So I'll let him answer that before getting into how we utilize it more so.
Yeah, Jeremy, our ticketing integration. So all of our communications related to game day are pretty much fully automated. So we have dynamic segments that fire off constantly throughout the days on event days that are capturing people that have tickets on account, especially as tickets are transferred, right? Because that's a big thing, is there's a lot of ticket movement on game days. So you want to make sure that you're communicating to those people as tickets change hand on game day. So the integration that we have is not direct with TrueDialog, or not even necessarily directly integrated with Eloqua, but it's integrated with Eloqua through a custom data object in Eloqua that we are loading throughout the day via an auto sync process, essentially.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about kind of the tone and the communication. So we all know that fan experience starts before someone even walks into the arena or ballpark or what have you. It starts before they even get to the parking lot, honestly. So let's talk about the tone. What did you include in that? What do these text messages look like, Ben?
Yeah. I think one thing that text message marketing really allows us to do is be clear and be concise with our consumers. And so, seriously, our know before you go text is, we look forward to seeing you tonight at, XL Energy Center, and links out to our bag policy and everything that they need to know, right? So with the text message, and with all of our text message marketing, we're saying something very concise and sending them to a landing page where they can get more information, that important information for their game day experience. Because, like you were saying, Jeremy, we understand that, the guest experience starts at 7 o'clock in the morning on a game day, right? It's trying to make it easy from a transportation standpoint, from an entry, safety and security standpoint, food and beverage standpoint. And we can do that through email communication, for sure, but it gets lengthy, it gets long. And so making sure that our text message is clear and concise, we do that every game day as well.
Love it, love it. So this is starting off with the bag policy. What does it evolve to now from a fan communication, fan experience, text messaging? What are you guys doing now?
It has certainly evolved, that's for sure. And I like that Bryant has said that it started with a service first mentality, and we certainly have continued to use it in that use case. But the sales side of it too. One thing that we have noticed from a marketing perspective is our fan behavior and our consumer behavior. Uh, we really see our fans purchasing our tickets 48 to 72 hours prior to game. And so text message marketing allows us to communicate directly to our fans during that time window, right? With that urgent message of we have a game coming up, purchase tickets, and again, just link out to our ticket link to hopefully convert some folks. So it's evolved as a sales tool for us. I think there's definitely some future use cases that we're looking at, whether that be A/B testing, MMS, which is including an image in those text message communications, and stuff like that that we're looking at for the future.
Love
Yeah,
it, love it. And
Jeremy,
I'm
I want
sure.
to jump in real quick there on
Go for
that.
it.
Like the MS thing um, is something that we want to be leveraging more, especially, where we utilize text messaging for marketing purposes a lot is to move single game tickets, certainly. But, like a lot of sports teams out there, we have a lot of different promotional activations, right? Where we're packaging, some sort of add-on along with their tickets to try and help tickets. So, rather than just providing, an SMS that is, just plain text with a link, we want to package that with the image of the product, and try and, if somebody's more likely to have an emotional response to something visual than, something that's plain text. So that's something where we want to start utilizing MMS more, certainly.
Yeah, love it. I've seen teams actually use the texting as if the text is coming from their mascot, and that's
Sure.
always pretty
That's
funny
cute.
where the mascot's in there with images, and you can really get creative. But I think that the piece that Ben hit on was it's in the tone of who we are. We're concise, we're punchy, we get to the point, we help you get you all the information that you need, just so to make sure that it fits into making sure you have a tremendous experience at our event. So let's go back to the bag policy here and that service first mentality. How did you kind of start measuring success here? So signed up, Amanda got you going, everything's good. You're sending out text messages. Is it less people who are trying to bring bags in? Is that kind of how you measured success?
I think that's certainly one way. I don't know how we would measure that, but I think when we think about service first, we also can correlate that with repeat business, right?
Mm.
And so, we think about someone coming into our database, subscribing to our emails, coming to a game. How can we get those buyers to have a continued affiliation with the team, right? How can they buy again? And so I think making sure that we are service first in everything that we do, text message being one of those things, and improving the game day experience, I think only helps with repeat buyers.
Yeah, makes
Right.
sense.
Exactly. Because that experience ultimately, before they even get to the game, it plays a big part in their total experience, right? So anything we can do to mitigate any sort of barriers or, poor opportunities for experience before they even get to the game, the more likely we are to set them up for a positive experience.
Makes sense. And Amanda, when oftentimes what we see is when people start using a new software, oftentimes some companies are like, hey, good luck, best of luck. But it seems like there's a lot of great customer service from your end to help specifically that first few months of getting this thing going.
Yeah. So TrueDialog, as they mentioned, integrates with CRM systems and marketing automation platforms like Eloqua. Part of what we do is get our teams up and running, right? Get everybody, not only have they acquired the software and the system is integrated and the data is flowing, and lists are being able to be pulled, but we're talking with them about compliance. We're talking with them about opt-in. We're talking with them about send times and best practices and segments and sort of the ins and outs. Our team is based here in the US. We are experts in this. We've been doing this since 2008. Our support team are true experts, and our goal is to make sure that our clients and customers and teams see business value, right? It's not helpful if it's software sitting on your shelf.
Right.
So.
Love it, love it. So we started off with the service first mentality. How did you balance the ticket selling and the service at the same time? Obviously, some cases it's different lists, but what did that look like to kind of balance the two of those as you were kind of getting going in the first few months or so?
I think that's certainly something we're still trying to figure out too. I think that's a not I don't want to say a battle, but a constant thing we're considering when we before we send text messages. How what's our ROI on this? And I think Bryant will touch on, a couple of cool metrics later on. But we do use it for ticketing, right? Because it is an urgent message, and we need it to be as clear and concise as possible. We do also just use it in other marketing campaigns. So, like open practices is another way for our fans to engage with our team, right? It's not a monetary thing, but it's just a way for us to build that brand affiliation. And so making sure that we're communicating those dates out to fans. And then also with open practices, they do get canceled sometimes. So again, an urgent message calls for text message. So communicating on those days where it does get canceled, we'll send out a text. So I think we are, internally at least, always having discussions about what's the best use case for text message marketing. But I think one of the great things about it is it does have a lot of use cases, and
Yeah.
certainly we've used it for a lot of those.
No doubt about it. All right, let's dig into the ticket sales side of this. So, Brian, you've got some cool numbers you want to share about a couple campaigns that you've done that went off, and we're just going to unpack those. And but if you've got the numbers in front of you, if not, I got them.
Yeah, no. So the one thing that I want to just kind of touch on real quick before we jump into the numbers, and I think the numbers will kind of help bear this out a little bit. Is you know, I think a lot of teams potentially get nervous about the cost associated with texting, right? And texting really, from a transactional standpoint, it's very low cost, and but sometimes there can be a concern about, well, how do we forecast, forecast texting from a budget, because it's all based off of volume, and if you are one of your goals is probably to build your list. So as you're building your list, then your volume is going to increase. So, some people might fear a little bit of a runaway train scenario from a budgeting standpoint. That being said, we look at it as it's another tool, for marketing that, especially in our market, we need. We really have to embrace the omni-channel approach here in our market, because we're one of those markets that has as many options for a consumer as possible when it comes to entertainment, right? I mean, we have pretty much every single professional sports franchise, from a major league standpoint, on both the men's and women's side. And then we also have major university in town here with the University of Minnesota. So, and even beyond that, I like to tell people, we're kind of like football's huge in the South, in Texas and such, high school football, high school hockey has that same draw up here. So especially as we get to this time of year, there's a lot of people on Friday, multiple nights, especially Friday nights during the week, that actually do prioritize going to like high school hockey games. So it's really important for us to make sure that, our brand and our experiences are being put in front of people as much as possible in as many ways as possible. And again, that's where the whole texting comes into play, because, hey, they might miss our emails, they might miss billboards, they might, as people move away from traditional media, they might be moving, not see TV commercials or hear radio commercials, right? So again, what's the best way to make sure we get in front of them? Hey, it's on their home screen. So text messaging is a great way to do that. So to talk about the numbers a little bit here real quick, we're going to use our Black Friday campaign that we ran, here at the end of November, and it only ran for about a week, Ben, I believe. But essentially, the two key takeaways here are that when we look at ROI and conversion rate, it performs exceptionally well in that campaign. So when we compare it to the actual ROI, we ended up at about a 12-to-1 return. So that put us at the highest, that text messaging had the highest return by far of any paid channel or any channel out there that had some sort of investment with it. So email is not part of that conversation because there's not really a cost associated with email, at least not on a transactional standpoint. So can't calculate ROAS from that perspective. But for pretty much every other channel, there's some sort of cost associated with it. And again, text messaging came out 12-1, and the next closest channels were in that 3-1 to 7-1 return, and such as like paid social and search display targeting. That those type of channels performed well as well. But again, text messaging is essentially doubling that. So from a return standpoint, it's fantastic. And then even from a conversion standpoint, it ranked third amongst all channels. So email was number one from a conversion standpoint, email was number one from a standpoint of overall revenue, and text messaging was third in overall revenue. But our conversion rate for text messaging was actually 5 times email. And people might wonder, well, wait a second, in revenue? Right, that's true, because our revenue, even though the conversion on email was lower than text messaging, the database that email is 10 to 12 times that of our text messaging database. But it just goes to show that even though our text messaging database is much smaller, the fact that it's converting at the highest rate just proves probably 2 things. One, that it's a more engaged audience, more dedicated fan base or consumer base to our brand, because text messaging for marketing has a much higher barrier or threshold of compliance in that it has to be explicit opt-in, whereas email's a little bit fuzzier, a little bit lower barrier or level of need there, which is why it's a much lower size or smaller database. But then also, again, the fact that, hey, you're on the home screen. I know I keep hammering that point, but that really is, in our mind, a big part of why conversion is so much better with text messaging.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So 12-1 ROI. Obviously, in email, just like you said, you have an enormous list. So you've got a lot more fish to go after, essentially, right? But in text messaging, for this specific campaign, did you kind of hedge your bets a little bit and just target the most specific list? How did you kind of craft the list? And then the other part of this was kind of the pre-planning promotion. Oftentimes I see teams do like teaser text messages and things like that. So kind of unpack the list, and then what did you do before to get to the point of 12-1?
I think, Ben, you can take that.
Yeah, I think I don't think it was as much about the list as it is our frequency, right?
Got it.
So we did send to all of our subscribers that we had within our SMS subscription base, right? So we're contacting all of them, but instead of so for this campaign that we're talking about, our Black Friday campaign, we send a daily email for a week, right? And it's at the end of the day, it's the same content. We try our best to be as creative as possible, making it look like it's a different email and what have you. But we send them the same people, the same thing every single day. And as Bryant mentioned, it's number one owned revenue channel for us. So something's working there. But with text, I think, as Bryant was talking about the conversion part, we didn't send it every day. We sent it on the first day of the campaign. We sent it on Black Friday, and then we also sent it on Cyber Monday too. So 3 texts over a week. I think there's a little less consumer fatigue there with the messaging. And again, I think it's also a very concise message too, which can speak to the conversion a little bit.
Yeah, love it, love it. Amanda, on your end, how are you guys tracking the conversion? Is there a UTM that Bryant sets up? What does that look like on the back end of TrueDialog?
Well, we have link shorteners, our proprietary link shorteners. We have branded link shorteners. And then, of course, they're tracking it on their side as well. So the teams can look in either location and see the conversion metrics. I'll say that these guys are so smart in their marketing. I've been in marketing for 25 years, digital marketing as well. And the way that this team and these two are approaching it is really, I think, phenomenal.
Yeah, there's some great lessons to be taken from you guys. Just the sophistication of how you plan things out. Oftentimes that I see with teams is like, oh, Black Friday's here, let's throw together a package, hit send, right? But it's like, no, the planning of this, the preparing, getting everything kind of organized, making sure everything is all set up in advance. I think that worked out well. So, what was the actual package? Was it 4 tickets to a game? Was it like a small mini plan? Did it include merch? What was it?
It's as Bryant always puts it, no one likes paying those stupid Ticketmaster fees. So it's our annual no fees campaign. It's really just focused on, single game tickets, and for a certain window of time, people can purchase those tickets without those fees. So that's all it is.
Well, that tells us that people do not like paying Ticketmaster fees.
Nobody likes a middleman, right?
So how do you do that on the back end to cover the fees? Because sure some teams are thinking right now, well, how do I do this?
That's a good question. I don't know, Bryant, if you know, but I just really send out the emails and the text
You just
messages. I don't ask those questions.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for that either. Unfortunately, Jeremy, sorry, there's no peek behind the curtain that I can give you from that standpoint. But if anybody that listens to this ever has any interest in talking about that campaign or anything else, they can certainly reach out to us, and we will make sure that the right people on our team are part of that conversation.
Love it, love it. I will make sure I put your contact information in the show notes and so forth, so people can reach out to you guys. But I love this. What's the next campaign you're putting together, and kind of talk us through kind of the promotion side of it and planning side of it.
This could not have been timed any better. We are actually doing a second no fees offer, which will kick off tomorrow. And so right now with the NHL, they're currently doing the Four Nations Face Off, which is it's taking place this year of our traditional like All-Star break. But we have a 2 week break now where we don't have any games, which is super nice for us internally. We get to catch our breath a little bit, but we're also, we don't want to lose out on that time to market what a busy March we have upcoming. So we're actually pushing out a no fees offer that's correlating with Valentine's Day, and so that's our next campaign, and email and app and all of our different marketing channels will be included in that, and text message, you bet your bottom dollar will include that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's where we're also going to be jumping into here the last couple months of the season is we have a lot of home games. We were very road heavy the first half of the season, so we have a lot of home games here the second half of the season, and we have a lot of ticket pack promotions. Where they're getting that extra item if they buy the tickets. So that's where we're going to be leaning into the MMS side of things to try and help move those ticket packs.
yeah. I love the idea of promoting the packs, and then when you talk single game buyers, ultimately we want to try single game buyers, get them to come back, because if we can get them to come back to two, potentially they turn into a mini plan, what have you, and eventually the goal would turn them into season tickets or what have you. You guys ever look at the metrics and go, these single game buyers came through text messaging and are now mini plans? Do you ever kind of can you tie that back together?
Uh, we haven't quite gotten to that level of attribution in terms of that customer journey and life cycle and that initial lead source, so to speak. But that is definitely something that we've talked about looking at here in the off season.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it. So there's some marvelous actionable strategies here for teams. I've also seen teams do some things in game specifically with texting. Hey, section 101 just won whatever it is, and they text everybody. What does it look like during the game from a texting, or do you only do it like pre-post?
So I can speak to that a little bit, and Bryant, please, feel free to jump in at all. But last year, with the team, you know, we were still like we were okay, and so uh, with memberships, we were trying everything we could to still push that message out. And our team came up with this idea of looking at the data and saying, okay, Bryant came. This is his third game that he's coming to tonight. We're going to put something in his cup holder saying, thanks for coming. Head to our season ticket member central. for XYZ. I'm forgetting what the incentive was there, but and so we placed an actual flyer in Bryant's cup holder. But we would also, if he was subscribed to text message marketing, we would also send him a text prior to the game. Um, Around that time where gates were opening, maybe he's walking in, hopefully, but kind of the same message, right? To supplement that piece of cup holder marketing, we would send a text with that as well, just pushing that membership message.
Love it.
Yeah, to your point, Jeremy, the inbound type of campaigns, I think, is what you're referencing, right? Where, like you said, it's we put something up on the scoreboard that says, text whatever, text wild to this short code, and to get more information about whatever the activation is. And that is something that we don't currently leverage too much, but it is certainly something that some of us are advocating for, that we do lean into, either end of this season or as we move into next season and look at marketing strategies. And part of that is certainly people that are at your games, right? Those are people that have actually invested money with you to be there, right? So they're the ones that are likely to, repeat. So, hey, let's get these unique activations in front of them that might interest them. And then the other big part of an inbound text campaign is the building of your marketing list for text messaging, right? Because if you get people to text into you, again, this is legal. This is the legal disclaimer, the obligatory legal disclaimer. Okay, so make sure that you're consulting with your partners, such as TrueDialog, and your legal counsel within your organization to understand all the minutia of the laws and opt-in compliance and such. But generally, if you can get somebody to initiate that conversation with you via some sort of keyword, that generally is considered express written consent, right? So that adds them to, and then, hey, you kind of doing a double opt-in essentially by having that auto reply that says, hey, here's your information, and you've been subscribed to, Minnesota Wild marketing, alerts. Here's the links to our privacy policy, our terms and conditions, and the frequency with which we plan to message you, and reply stop to, opt out, right? That's kind of like what that message would look like. Even when most of our list has been built through kind of a passive marketing, in the sense that passive sign up, it's still express written consent. When I say passive, I just mean that we don't really promote it that much. Mm-hmm. Essentially, most of our list has been built via form opt-in. So we add text message opt-ins to all of our forms that we put out in the marketplace. And, that links to our privacy policy, again, terms and conditions, gives you all of that opt-in compliance that is necessary on the forms. And then, it also includes the basically a radio button where people say, yes, I want in, or no, I do not. So they actually have to select yes. You cannot pre-check that. And then once they're in, they get a text message confirming that, hey, you've been subscribed, gives them all that same information, and then gives them the option to opt out again. So that's how we've built our list. But I did want to just make sure that I pointed out that, hey, having that inbound campaign is a fantastic way to additionally build your list. And I think from a sports standpoint, the teams that actually I'd say probably do it well, I would say, are colleges, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like colleges really lean into that and probably see some great success with it. So that's definitely something we'd like to.
Yeah, you got my vote for even if it's just your triggered promotions, 3 goals, or in college it's missed free throws and you text in, you get a free Chick-fil-A sandwich or whatever. So it's a great sponsorship opportunity, great way to get the fans involved, and it also kind of limits the ability to have people standing out the gates handing out coupons, right? So all the way around, you can make it a better fan experience by incorporating that. So you got my vote if you needed it. So, love it. Amanda, let's talk about TrueDialog a little bit. These guys are experts. A lot of the things that they're doing, they even told us a little bit of some of the things that they want to be doing soon. What are some things that inside TrueDialog that we didn't talk about?
Well, I think we touched on the direct carrier connection, so we don't have a middleman in there, which ultimately leads to lower costs and better support. Really, there's less one stop less for failure. I think, as Brian mentioned it earlier. Um, we're an integrated platform, so CRM systems like Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, HubSpot, and marketing automation platforms like Eloqua, Marketo, HubSpot, whatever there might be. We integrate in there for team members to have seamless user experience. I could go on and on. I'm not really sure what's really relevant, but we do work with a number of sports teams, pro sports teams like the Wild, as well as small community teams. So it's a great thing. It's been a lot of fun.
Love it, love it. Before we kind of get to the people reaching out to you if they have questions, what's next for True Dialogue? Is there some other things that y'all are working on behind the scenes that would enhance the Wild and other teams as well?
Yeah, well, we recently launched a feature called True Delivery, which it uses AI to vet the message content and see if that message content will get flagged as spam by the carriers like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, et cetera, which leads to delivery optimization. So what if you're not using SMS, you may not realize that the carriers will charge you for messages sent, even if it's blocked by spam. So you're having to pay for those messages that aren't delivered. So that has been one of our more recent featured deliveries to help our campaign optimizations for our clients.
I love that because oftentimes I've heard from other organizations, it's like, how do we use AI to make it even more automated and what have you? And it's like, that's great and all, but I still want to sell tickets and I want to get it into the
Right.
box, right? It's
Right.
got to, let's start at the service
Right.
portion of it rather than that piece. So that
Yeah.
I love the customer service step one with y'all. So that's great.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
AI is such a hot topic right now, right? I think it's worth noting that our AI, your messages don't leave our system. So we're not sharing it with open proprietary, open source AI models. It is a closed system there. And then we're constantly learning. It runs, I think, every 6 hours to see what the latest spam keywords might be to make sure that the messages are delivered. So.
Yeah. Love it.
Jeremy,
Love it.
I know, I don't want to run us super long here, but I do want to just touch on that topic real quick about deliverability, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So, one thing that teams need to consider is, do I want to invest in long codes or short codes? And I might be going a little bit off old information here, so Amanda can certainly set me right here, but historically, short codes allow for the best deliverability. And it's short codes are really built for volume. Now, we certainly didn't choose short codes because of the volume necessarily. We're low volume compared to a lot of texting companies out there, but ultimately it is a deliverability thing for us, especially in sports, right? Because we're trying to sell tickets, and a lot of the keywords that we use traditionally trigger the spam filters within the carriers, like things like buy or tickets or, things like that. And when you invest in a short code, the process of obtaining that short code and having it approved with the carriers, again, is a much higher threshold of scrutiny. And once you've met that threshold, then I don't want to say you get a pass, but each individual message is no longer scrutinized by the carrier spam filters at the level that like a long code is. So that's 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 one way that TrueDialog can certainly help. Any other sports entity out there that's interested in this is really understanding and explaining the minutia of short code versus long code. Yes, short codes are more expensive, but again, I think it's worth that extra investment over a long code, especially when you're talking about the deliverability. And let's just, the other consideration here is that from a marketing perspective, especially if you are going to try and leverage text messaging for those inbound campaigns, like we were just talking about a few minutes ago in Arena or even in traditional media, you're likely going to want to say, hey, text this keyword to, for example, our short code is 222-100. Okay. It's a lot easier to give a 6-digit code than it is to give a 10-digit long code, right?
Yeah.
Expect somebody to remember that. So from a marketing perspective, certainly for inbound campaigns, it's necessary. And there are different levels of short code investments, right? There's a vanity short code where you get to pick the 6 digits that you are going to be registered to your business, or you can just go with a randomized short code that it's a random, 5-6 digit code that gets assigned to business. And there are different costs, but, I would say if there is a number set that you can tie back to your brand that people maybe already have associated with your brand, then it might be worth it for the extra few $1,000s annually to invest in that vanity short code.
Yeah, that team affiliation with that short code and the branded URLs as well, the branded proprietary URL shorteners just go a long way towards that brand affiliation that Ben was talking about.
Right. Well, and from a deliverability standpoint too, again, historically, if you tried to send out a shortened URL with a long code, that would almost always trigger spam filters.
Absolutely.
So the only way to get around that is to send the full plain text long URL in order to bypass those spam filters with those long codes. And that's just not pretty. That's not concise. That looks ugly. It almost looks
especially
spammy.
When you have UTM tracking codes on
Right,
there, right?
exactly.
Then it's really long and ugly.
Yep. So that's where, if you have a short code, then you're utilizing like TrueDialog's built-in, link shortener. So it's cleaner, it's more concise, and probably going to lead to, again, better conversion, things like that.
Better deliverability. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's not a sexy topic for sure. People want to get text messages, start hitting send, and start making money, or getting season ticket orders to show up to games better. So I totally get it. But I think that's the conversation that I think teams should start with. How do we get how do we maximize our deliverability with text messaging rather than how do we sell more today? Like, hey, let's back the truck up a little bit because this is a long-term play, not a short-term play. And I love how you all took that approach with this. And I love how Amanda kind of pointed you in the right direction based on what you were looking for. So this is great. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy.
You got it. Well, I appreciate you all coming on. Ben, Bryant from The Wild, Amanda from TrueDialog. I'm going to put your contact info in the show notes, and just appreciate you sharing all these great tips all about texting and making the fan experience better and selling more tickets.
Thanks for having us, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.